I think we have to really be kind of humble about what we think evolution is capable of. I mean, if you just look at the incredible diversity of life on Earth, evolution has has come up with some pretty wild structures and strategies. And I mean, it's part of what I love about being a biologist is that life is just almost infinitely complex and diverse, and it is just fascinating. So, the question is like, on what time scale are we talking about, right? So, if you wait long enough, and if our descendants survive long enough, almost anything, it seems, is possible. Now, there's constraints, that come more from physics maybe than from biology. But I hesitate to say there's any limits really on how we could evolve. It's just sort of like, well, maybe one caveat I should put on that is that, natural selection by itself can't make new forms. It's really mutation is the ultimate sort of creative engine when it comes to evolution. And so you have to have some kind of new mutation that allows for a certain trait to exist. So as much as we would like to have cool features like wings or something like that, you can't just sort of like say, well, it would be advantageous to have wings, so why didn't they evolve? Well, you have to have, a mutation, or in this case, it would be many, many mutations that would give rise to wings. And then the individuals with wings have to, survive a little longer and pass on more copies of those wing genes than other individuals do. So it's important to like clarify that, natural selection can only work with whatever exists. And how those new traits come into existence is ultimately through mutation. Mutation and the swapping around of genes that comes with sexual reproduction.
Mm-hmm. Well, we could open the transhumanism door a little bit. I mean, what about taking things into our own hands with technologies? Yeah. We have technologies like CRISPR, which we don't want to overhype, but we're already at a point where we can start to alter our genes independent of waiting for a mutation. What about taking it into our own hands?
Yeah, no, I think it's an important thing to talk about, because you're right. We do have, in theory, the technology to basically give us some of those superpowers now, right? I mean, if we knew what genetic changes to make, and if we knew that we could make those changes safely and that they would be effective, then yeah, we know how to make the changes. That's actually not the problem anymore. It's knowing the other things. So yeah, this was a fun part of the book to research. Going and visiting synthetic biologists in their labs and kind of seeing the ways in which they're trying to do this already today. I visited Chris Mason's lab at Weill Cornell Medicine, and he's working, among other things, on trying to see if you can put genes from tardigrades into human cells. Tardigrades being kind of famously able to tolerate extreme conditions. They've been brought up into space and are able to, within some limits, survive being in the vacuum of space, survive being exposed to space radiation. And we know a little bit about some of the genetic basis for that. So there's a gene called DSUP, which stands for damage suppressor, that produces a protein, also called DSUP, that helps to basically suppress the damage to DNA caused by radiation. And in some of these experiments, they've shown that human cells grown in culture with those DSUP genes inserted into them or edited into them, they have increased resistance to radiation. So, at least in theory, it seems like some of that would be possible. So yeah, I think, if you sort of take that idea and expand it to think about other genes, other traits that we might think would be helpful to have in a colony on Mars, a space settlement, then that might be an effective way. It might be an important way to help people to survive and thrive in that environment.